History is not just ink on paper, it is blood and secrets. When Amelia Ashworth sells her grandfather's classified past to cover a gambling debt, she doesn't just trigger a scandal, she invites a reckoning. In this house, honor is the only currency that matters, and the price of betrayal is steep. Asterisk.
Rain lashed against the sash windows of the Ashworths' Georgian terrace in Clapham. It wasn't a gentle rain. It was a rhythmic percussion, a relentless drumming that seemed to mock the fevered pulse in Amelia's chest. The sound was a dreary counterpoint to the storm raging inside the room. Amelia sat hunched on her bed, a posture that defied her usual grace. The room was dark, illuminated only by the pallid, sickly glow of her laptop screen. The light cast harsh shadows across her face, hollowing out her cheeks and turning her eyes into pools of ink. It gave her the look of a chiaroscuro figure in an old master's portrait, beautiful, but haunted by something unseen. At 20 years old, Amelia Ashworth was not unremarkable. She possessed that specific brand of quiet elegance common to young women raised in academically rigorous, emotionally reserved British households. Her ash-blonde hair was pulled back in a severe, yet becoming, low ponytail that emphasized the long line of her neck. She wore, as was her habit, a tailored black shirt buttoned all the way to the throat, a kind of armor against the world. It was tucked neatly into a knee-length black pleated skirt that whispered with every shift of her posture. To an observer, she might have seemed the very picture of composure. A diligent student working late, a young professional reviewing a brief, but inwardly, she was adrift in a maelstrom of dread. For months, Amelia had been ensnared in a web of her own making. It had started innocuously enough, a foolish flirtation with online sports betting during the Euro Cup. A £10 bet here, a £20 flutter there. It was supposed to be a diversion from the crushing pressure of her final year law exams. It was supposed to be fun. It had metastasized into a ruinous compulsion. The dopamine hit of a win was electric, brighter than any grade she had ever received. But the losses were a black hole. She had chased them with a desperate, frantic logic that made sense only at 3:00 a.m. She had lost her modest savings, money from birthdays and summer jobs, within weeks. Then, she had turned to the predatory loan apps that lived in the dark corners of the App Store. The ones with friendly logos and interest rates that bordered on the usurious. Current debt, £4, 800 at her part-time job as a barista at a Bloomsbury cafe, barely covered her tube fare and textbooks. Rent was due. The apps were sending notifications that vibrated her phone like little shocks of fear. Payment overdue. Action required. Legal notice imminent. She could not tell her mother. Clare Ashworth was a woman whose very identity was woven from threads of propriety, historical stewardship, and unimpeachable discretion. A professor of modern history at King's College, Clare viewed financial irresponsibility not as a misfortune, but as a moral failing. To confess to Clare would be to admit that the apple hadn't just fallen far from the tree, it had rolled into the gutter. Then, 3 days prior, salvation had appeared. Or, so Amelia had thought. It happened during a rare bout of filial diligence. Clare had asked Amelia to clear out the cobweb trunks from the attic, heirlooms from the Ashworth side that had been gathering dust since the 90s. Amelia had been sifting through moth-eaten silk scarves and rusted pocket watches when she stumbled upon it at a battered leather dispatch box. The leather was cracked, smelling of old tobacco and time. Engraved on the lid in gold leaf, now flaking, were the initials, A. Arthur Edwin Ashworth. Her grandfather, inside, beneath a layer of yellowed correspondence, lay a slim USB drive. It was an anachronism in the box of antiques. It was sealed in a wax envelope, stamped with a single word in her mother's precise, looping handwriting, confidential. Curiosity, that most ancient and destructive of human frailties, proved irresistible. Amelia had plugged the drive into her laptop. The files within were a trove of Cold War-era intrigue. Scanned telegrams redacted with thick black ink. Ciphered communiques. Grainy photographs of men in trench coats standing on rainy Berlin street corners, and most damningly, a signed affidavit from 1961. It, Arthur Edwin Ashworth, then a junior attaché at the British Embassy in West Berlin, admitted to orchestrating a clandestine exfiltration of 3 East German dissident families through Checkpoint Charlie. Berlin, as history attests, was a western island in a communist sea. an ideal place for spies to gather intelligence. But British operatives operated with subtle rules. Their actions were buried beneath layers of diplomatic immunity and plausible deniability that Arthur's deeds, though morally righteous, had skirted the edges of treason. He had used embassy funds without authorization. He had forged documents. The Foreign Office had buried the matter to avoid inflaming tensions during the Berlin crisis. The very year the wall rose like a scar across the heart of Europe, 4 decades, the secret had remained entombed. Clare, inheriting it upon her father's death, had treated it not as gossip, but as a sacred trust, a silent covenant between generations. Amelia, however, saw only one thing: opportunity. That night, heart hammering against her ribs, she had contacted the cipher post. It was an online rag infamous for its voracious appetite for classified leaks and scandalous historical revisions. The negotiation had been brief. Brutal. After verifying the authenticity of the files, they offered her £5,000 for exclusive digital rights. It was exactly enough. It would clear the debt. It would stop the notifications. It would let her breathe again. Desperate and ashamed, Amelia accepted. She told herself it was history, not betrayal. She told herself the Cold War was over, that these were just old papers about dead men. She told herself no one would truly suffer. She was catastrophically wrong. The story had detonated at midday. The cipher post ran the headline in bold, screaming red font: Ashworth legacy tarnished. Historian's family hid war espionage ties. The article painted Arthur not as a hero, but as a rogue agent who endangered national security. It implied that Clare Ashworth, the esteemed professor, had suppressed historical truth to protect her family name. Clare's university issued a statement of deep concern. Her colleagues began distancing themselves on Twitter. Even the local grocer had avoided looking Clare in the eye when she bought milk that morning. And Amelia? She sat in her room, frozen. She watched her mother's life unravel on the screen. Pixel by pixel, she had cleared her debt. But she had bought a disaster. The time on Amelia's laptop read 7:03 p.m. downstairs. The front door opened. The familiar creak of the heavy oak door usually signaled safety. Mom was home. Tonight, it sounded like the hinge of a tomb opening. Amelia didn't move. She couldn't. Her limbs felt heavy, leaden with guilt. She heard the footsteps. Slow. Measured. They didn't have the brisk, energetic cadence of Professor Ashworth returning from a lecture. They were the steps of a woman walking through water. Amelia forced herself to stand. She smoothed her black skirt with trembling hands. She checked her reflection in the dark window, pale, ghostly, terrified. She walked out of her room and to the top of the stairs. Clare was in the hallway. She was still wearing her camel trench coat, spattered with dark rain spots. Her hair, usually an immaculate French twist, was frizzy from the humidity. Her face was ashen beneath the soft light of the hallway sconce. She carried not her usual leather satchel, but a thick manila envelope stamped Confidential, King's College London. Clare didn't remove her coat. She didn't check the mail on the table. She didn't call out a greeting. She simply stood before the fireplace in the living room, her back to the stairs. Her eyes were fixed on the framed photograph above the mantel. Arthur Ashworth in his Royal Navy uniform, stern yet kind, flanked by his wife and infant son. Amelia walked down the stairs. The carpet swallowed the sound of her feet, but the silence in the house was so loud it felt physical. She entered the living room. Clare didn't turn. "Have you seen the news?" Clare asked finally. Her voice was low. It was devoid of its usual scholarly warmth. It sounded hollowed out, scraped clean of emotion. Amelia stopped near the sofa. "Yes. Do you comprehend the magnitude of what has happened today?" Clare asked, still staring at the photo. I thought it was just old papers," Amelia stammered. Her voice frayed at the edges, pathetic and thin. "I didn't think it would be a big deal. It was 60 years ago. Did you sell it?" Clare turned sharply. The movement was so sudden it made Amelia flinch. Clare's gaze was glacial. It wasn't angry. Anger is hot. This was cold. It was analytical. She was dissecting Amelia, looking for the rot. "Did you sell the archive?" Clare repeated. Amelia's breath hitched. She looked down at her hands, folded tightly in front of her black skirt. Her knuckles were white. "Mom, Do not lie to me," Clare said. Her voice dropped an octave. I traced the blockchain transaction. Amelia's head snapped up. What? Dr. Berlin at Cyberus EC. Claire continued, her tone chillingly calm. He is a colleague. I asked him to trace the source of the leak. The crypto wallet used to receive the payment was registered under your student IP address. The timestamp aligns with your login from the attic Wi-Fi 3 nights ago. Claire stepped closer. Her heels clicked on the hardwood floor like a judge's gavel. Amelia, look at me. Tears blurred Amelia's vision as she raised her head. She saw the devastation in her mother's eyes. It wasn't just disappointment. It was heartbreak. I was drowning, Mom, Amelia whispered, the dam finally breaking. I was in debt. Gambling debt. I owed almost £5,000. I didn't know where else to turn. I was scared. Drowning, Claire repeated. Her voice cracked. Is that what you call greed disguised as desperation? You didn't ask me for help. You didn't seek counsel. You chose to auction off our family's soul for pocket change. Claire inhaled sharply, steadying herself against a wave of grief. She looked at the manila envelope in her hand, the notification of an ethics inquiry from her university. In this house, Claire said, betrayal is not merely a mistake. It is a rupture. She placed the envelope on the mantelpiece, next to the photo of the man Amelia had sold. And ruptures, Claire said, her voice dropping to a near whisper, require mending through consequence. She walked to the large armchair near the window, her grandfather's wingback chair, and sat down with regal composure. She smoothed her skirt. She looked at Amelia. Come here. Amelia's heart hammered a frantic rhythm against her ribs. She knew what this meant. It was a scene from a childhood she thought she had outgrown, a ritual of correction that belonged to a different era. But in the Ashworth house, time was fluid, and traditions were iron. Mom, Amelia pleaded softly. I'm 20. You are 20, Claire agreed. But maturity is not measured in years, Amelia. It is measured in choices. And tonight, you have proven that your choices are that of a frightened, dishonest child. Claire pointed to the floor in front of her. Tonight, you will be reminded of the gravity of your actions. You will be punished as you were when you were a child. Not in anger, but in sorrow and in hope. Amelia stood frozen. She could refuse. She could walk out. She was an adult. But where would she go? To the debt collectors? To a world that she had just learned she couldn't navigate? And deep down, beneath the fear, was a terrible, aching need for absolution. She had broken something fundamental. Words wouldn't fix it. Maybe this would. Amelia walked forward. Her legs felt unsteady, her black skirt swaying like a mourner's veil around her knees. She stood before her mother, small and exposed. The study, Claire corrected herself. We will do this in the study. It is the place of history. It is fitting. Claire stood up and walked toward the heavy oak doors of the study. Amelia followed, head bowed, walking toward the reckoning she had purchased for £5,000. The study was a sanctuary of quiet intellect. Mahogany shelves groaned under the weight of volumes on Tudor diplomacy, Napoleonic treaties, and post-war reconstruction. The air smelled of beeswax, old paper, and bergamot. A fire crackled low in the hearth, casting long, dancing shadows that stretched across the Persian rug. Claire settled into the leather wingback chair. It creaked as she sat, a sound of authority. Close the door, Claire said. Amelia pushed the heavy door shut. The click of the latch sealed the room. The rain outside was muffled now, a distant memory. Come here, Claire said again. Amelia walked to the chair. Lie across my lap, Claire instructed. Her voice was steady, void of hesitation. Amelia obeyed. Her body folded over her mother's knees with practiced submission, though it had been a decade since such discipline had been meted out. She balanced on her stomach, her legs hanging off one side, her torso on the other. Her black pleated skirt rode up, bunching at her waist. Beneath it, she wore opaque black tights, demure, practical. They offered no protection, only a thin veil of modesty. Amelia buried her face in the crook of her elbow. She inhaled the scent of her mother's perfume, Chanel No. 5 and Rain. It was a smell that meant safety, even now. Comfortable? Claire asked. It wasn't a question about physical comfort. It was a check-in. Are you present? Yes, Amelia mumbled into her arm. We begin, Claire said. The first spank landed with a crisp, resonant thwack. It was open-handed, firm, precise, utterly devoid of malice. Amelia jerked slightly, her body reacting to the sudden stimulus, but she did not cry out. The sound echoed in the quiet room, absorbed by the rows of books. "Do you understand why you are being punished?" Clare asked. Her hand rested momentarily on Amelia's lower back, feeling the warmth rising through the tights. "Yes," came the muffled reply. "Say it," Clare commanded. "Because I sold the secret," Amelia whispered. "Because I sold our family for money." "Thwack." "Louder," Clare said. "Own it." "Because I was selfish." Amelia cried out as the second blow landed, harder this time. "Thwack." And I dishonored Granddad's memory." "Thwack." And I betrayed your trust." "Thwack. Thwack. Thwack." Each stroke was deliberate, rhythmic, calibrated not to wound the flesh, but to imprint a physical echo of moral reckoning. The sting bloomed across Amelia's backside, sharp and burning. It was a grounding fire. It burned away the excuses. It burned away the denial. But far worse than the pain was the shame. The crushing weight of having disappointed the one person whose approval she valued above all else. Tears seeped through her lashes, dampening the fabric of her black shirt sleeve. She bit her lip to stifle the sobs, but they escaped anyway, soft, broken sounds that filled the room like a requiem. Clare did not stop. She had a duty. To the past. To the future. "Secrets like ours are not currency, Amelia," Clare said, her voice weaving through the rhythm of the discipline. "Thwack. They are legacies." "Thwack. And legacies demand reverence." "Thwack." Amelia's legs kicked out involuntarily. She squeezed her eyes shut. She was 20 years old, and she was crying on her mother's lap while being spanked. It should have been humiliating. And it was. But it was also relieving. The lie was gone. The debt was exposed. The worst had happened, and her mother was still here. Touching her. Correcting her. Claiming her. After a dozen measured swats, Clare ceased. Her hand remained warm and steady on Amelia's lower back, pressing down gently. It was a gesture of containment. "This was never about inflicting pain," Clare said softly, stroking the fabric of the tights. "It was about restoring gravity." Amelia lay there, sobbing quietly. Her body felt heavy, drained of the anxiety that had plagued her for months. "Sit up," Clare whispered. Amelia pushed herself up. She sat on the rug at her mother's feet, her legs tucked under her. Her ponytail had come undone, strands of ash-blonde hair clinging to her damp cheeks. Her face was red, blotchy, stripped of its usual cool reserve. She looked up at her mother. "Mom, I'm so desperately sorry," she whispered, her voice raw. "I was cowardly. And I was stupid. I thought the past was dead weight, but it's not. It's our foundation. And I tried to pawn it off like rubbish." She reached blindly for her mother's hand. Clare took it. "I'll do anything to fix this," Amelia vowed. "Anything." Clare looked down at her daughter. She reached out and cupped Amelia's face in her palms, wiping away a tear with her thumb. "Apologies are only words until they are backed by action, Amelia," Clare said sternly, though her eyes were glistening. "But this, your remorse, this is real. And that gives us a place to begin." Amelia nodded fiercely. "I'll contact the cipher post tonight," Amelia said, the plan forming through the fog of her tears. "I'll offer a full retraction. I'll threaten legal action if I have to. I'll admit I lied about the source. I'll return every pound." "Good," Clare said. "That is your penance." Clare leaned back in the chair, looking exhausted but resolved. "Go to your room," Clare said. "Write the letter. Initiate the transfer. And tomorrow we deal with the debt." Amelia stood up. She winced slightly as she straightened, the physical reminder of the punishment flaring up. "Thank you, Mom," Amelia whispered. She turned and walked out of the study, leaving the heavy door open behind her. The house had fallen silent, but it was not the empty silence of before. It was a heavy, settling silence, like the atmosphere after a fever breaks. The rain had softened to a gentle hush against the glass, a lullaby for a city that never truly slept. Amelia sat at her desk. The lamp cast a warm, yellow pool of light onto the mahogany surface, illuminating the chaos of her digital life. She shifted in her chair, a sharp wince tightening her features. The physical aftermath of the discipline was acute. Her backside throbbed with a persistent, radiating heat, a reminder that pulsed in time with her heartbeat. Every movement, crossing her legs, leaning forward, triggered a spike of sensitivity that forced her to pause, to breathe, to remember. But strange as it was, the pain was grounding. It was real. It wasn't a notification on a screen or a number in a bank account. It was a tangible boundary in a world where she had lost all sense of limits. She opened her laptop. Step 1, the retraction. She didn't write an email. Emails were too easy to ignore. She drafted a formal legal request. She channeled every ounce of her 2 years of law school education into the document. To the editors of a cipher post. Unauthorized publication of classified estate materials. I am writing to formally retract the materials provided to your outlet on the 14th of November. The documents in question, specifically the affidavit of Arthur Edwin Ashworth, were obtained without the consent of the estate executor, Professor Clare Ashworth, and were provided under duress and false pretenses regarding their provenance. I am hereby invoking the Data Protection Act regarding the privacy of deceased individuals and the theft of intellectual property. If the article is not removed and the files permanently deleted from your servers within 24 hours, the Ashworth estate will pursue immediate injunctive relief and damages for defamation of character. Furthermore, the exclusivity fee is being returned in full. Her fingers flew across the keys. She attached scanned copies of Arthur's will, which explicitly entrusted Clare, and only Clare, with the stewardship of the archive. It was a bluff partially. The cipher post was known for being slippery. But it was a start. It was a shield thrown up to protect her mother. Step 2, the money. Amelia opened her banking app. The balance stared back at her, £5,012.40. The blood money. For a moment, the old panic flared. If she sent this back, the debt remained. The loan sharks, the apps, the crushing weight of the £4,800 she owed. But then she felt the dull ache in her lower body. She remembered the look in her mother's eyes. Not anger, but sorrow. She remembered the rhythm of the paddle, a metronome resetting her life. Secrets are not currency. With trembling fingers, she initiated the transfer. Payee, the cipher post/Shell Corporation amount, £5,000. Reference, unauthorized/return. She pressed confirm. The screen loaded. A green tick appeared. Gone. The money was gone. She was broke again. She was in debt again. But for the first time in months, she didn't feel like she was drowning. She felt like she had grabbed a lifeline. She closed the laptop. She reached for a piece of thick, cream-colored cotton paper from her stationery drawer. She uncapped her fountain pen. Her hand shook as she wrote, the ink glistening wet and black on the page. Mom, I sent the money back. I threatened legal action. I am trying to close the wound. But the money wasn't the problem. The problem was that I stopped trusting you. I stopped trusting that you would love me if I wasn't perfect. I got into debt because I was chasing a feeling, a win, that I couldn't find in my real life. And then I dug a hole so deep I thought the only way out was to burn the ladder. Thank you for stopping me. Thank you for caring enough to punish me. You didn't just spank me, you woke me up. I am ready to do the work. Whatever it takes. She folded the letter. She walked to her door, moving stiffly, the fabric of her skirt brushing against her tender skin. She crept into the hallway. Her mother's door was closed. A sliver of light showed underneath. Clare was still awake. Amelia slid the letter under the door. She waited a beat, listening. She heard footsteps approach. She heard the paper rustle as it was pulled through to the other side. She held her breath. No sound came from the room. Amelia turned and walked back to her bed. She lay down on her stomach, pulling the duvet up over her shoulders. The darkness of the room felt protective now, no longer a cage. Scene transition. Morning arrived, cloaked in pale gold light that filtered through the London fog. The kitchen of the Ashworth house was usually a place of brisk efficiency. Toast eaten over the sink, news radio humming, schedules coordinated. Today, it was a sanctuary. The scent of freshly brewed Earl Grey and toasted sourdough filled the air. Clare sat at the wooden table. She was wearing a soft gray cashmere cardigan and reading glasses. Amelia's letter lay open before her, the edges smoothed down by her thumb. Her expression was unreadable, a mix of fatigue and deep, contemplative thought. Amelia entered quietly. She had changed. The severe black outfit of yesterday was gone. She wore a crisp white blouse, buttoned modestly but lacking the armor-like rigidity of her previous clothes. Her black skirt was the same, but paired with the white, she looked lighter, younger. Her hair was neatly rebraided, exposing her face. She paused in the doorway. "Morning," Amelia whispered. Claire looked up. She took off her glasses. Her eyes were tired, red-rimmed, but the glacial coldness of the night before had thawed. "You returned the money?" Claire asked quietly. "Yes," Amelia said, stepping into the room. "And I sent the email. I copied the university legal department on a blind carbon copy just in case." Claire nodded slowly. "That was thorough." "I've also scheduled a meeting," Amelia continued, her voice gaining a little strength, "with the Student Financial Aid Office and with the Counseling Center. They offer free sessions for students with compulsions." She said the word, compulsions. It hung in the air, heavy and real. Claire looked at her daughter. She saw the exhaustion in Amelia's posture. She saw the way Amelia shifted her weight, favoring one leg, avoiding pressure on her backside. "Sit," Claire said, gesturing to the chair with the cushion. Amelia sat down gingerly. She winced, a quick intake of breath, but settled. "The gambling," Claire said. "It wasn't an accusation. It was an opening." Amelia looked at her hands. "It started as a joke. During the Euros. Everyone was doing it. But when I won, it felt like I was in control. For the first time in law school, where everything is so hard and uncertain, I felt like I could predict the future. And then I lost. And I thought I could fix it. I thought I could outsmart the math." "You cannot outsmart chaos, Amelia," Claire said softly. "I know," Amelia said. "I know that now. But I was too ashamed to tell you. You're Professor Ashworth. You're the custodian of history. I didn't want to be the failure." Claire sighed. It was a long, shuddering sound. To Amelia's surprise, Claire reached across the table. She took Amelia's hand. Her grip was firm, warm, anchoring. "I should have asked how you were," Claire admitted. "I saw you withdrawing. I saw the lights on at 3 a.m. I assumed it was diligence. I assumed your silence meant strength." Claire squeezed her hand. "But silence can be suffering in disguise. We are British, Amelia. We are trained to keep calm and carry on. But sometimes we just carry on until we break." "I broke," Amelia whispered. "And now we rebuild," Claire said. "I will help you with the debt." Amelia shook her head immediately. No, Mom. I can't let you pay it. It is a loan," Claire corrected sternly. "With interest. Not financial interest. I am not a bank. But moral interest. You will pay me back by working, by studying, and by being honest." "I will," Amelia promised. "I'll get a second job. I'll sell my designer bag. I'll fix it. We will fix it," Claire said. They sat there for a long moment, the steam rising from their tea, the silence no longer filled with secrets, but with a fragile, tentative peace. That afternoon, the rain had stopped completely. Claire asked Amelia to meet her in the attic. Amelia climbed the stairs, her heart beating a little faster. The attic was the scene of a crime. It was where she had found the dispatch box, where she had stolen the legacy. When she reached the top, Claire was already there. The window was open, letting in a cool breeze that smelled of wet slate and moss. The leather dispatch box, the one with the spy documents, was gone. Claire had moved it to a secure location, likely a bank vault. In its place, on the dusty work table, sat a different box. This one was made of worn cedar wood. It smelled of lavender and old paper. "The spy archive is closed," Claire said, her voice echoing slightly in the rafters. "Arthur's work in Berlin is a matter for the Foreign Office and the historians once the dust settles." She gestured to the cedar box. "But this is the family archive." Amelia stepped closer. "What's in it?" "Ordinary things," Claire said. "Things that have no market value. Things the cipher post wouldn't pay a penny for." Claire opened the lid. Inside were bundles of letters tied with faded blue ribbon. Black and white photographs with scalloped edges. A child's drawing of a cat. A dried rose pressed between glass. Letters from Arthur to his wife during the Blitz, Claire explained, picking up a bundle. He wasn't a spy then. He was just a scared young man in the Navy, writing to the woman he loved. She picked up a small notebook, grocery lists from 1948, ration coupons, proof of how they survived the lean years. She pulled out a photograph. It was in color, slightly faded. A little girl in a yellow raincoat standing in front of Stonehenge, grinning toothlessly. And you, Claire smiled. Age 6. The day you decided you wanted to be a druid. Amelia smiled weakly. She remembered that raincoat. These, Claire said, looking at Amelia, are ours to share. The Imperial War Museum has requested materials for a new exhibit. It's called Everyday Courage. It's not about spies or generals. It's about how normal families survived extraordinary times. Claire held out the box to Amelia. They need someone to digitize them, to catalog them, to write the metadata. It is tedious work. It requires precision. It requires respect. Amelia looked at the box. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't scandalous. It was just life. May I? Amelia asked, her voice tentative yet hopeful. May I help you with this? Claire smiled. A true smile. Rare. Warm. Forgiving. You may, Claire said. Consider it part of your repayment. The study. Day. Amelia is wearing white cotton gloves. She is sitting at the large mahogany desk. The scanner hums rhythmically, a new sound to replace the thwack of the paddle. She places a letter on the glass. She adjusts the settings. She scans it. On the screen, the handwriting appears. My dearest Lily, the sirens were loud tonight. Amelia types the description into the database. Her focus is absolute. She isn't checking odds. She isn't looking at loan apps. She is present. The kitchen. Night. Amelia and Claire are cooking dinner. A simple pasta. They are laughing. It's a small sound, tentative, but it's there. Amelia moves carefully around the kitchen, still stiff, but the tension in her shoulders is gone. The university. Day. Amelia walks out of the student support center. She looks relieved. She holds a pamphlet on managing financial anxiety. She puts it in her bag, right next to her law books. The study. Evening. Claire stands by the fireplace. She is watching Amelia work. Amelia doesn't notice her at first. She is holding a photograph of Arthur Ashworth, not the spy, but the grandfather, holding a baby Clare. Amelia touches the photo gently with her gloved finger. A gesture of reverence. Claire nods to herself. The lesson has landed. The gravity is restored. It had been 2 weeks. The scandal with the cipher post had blown over, as internet scandals do, replaced by the next outrage. The retraction had been published, buried on page 6, but published nonetheless. The money was gone, but so was the lie. Amelia sat in the study. The rain was falling again, a soft drizzle over Clapham. She had finished the box. 300 items, digitized, cataloged, and saved. She printed the final manifest. Claire walked in. She carried 2 mugs of tea. Finished? Claire asked. Yes, Amelia said. She took off the white gloves and laid them on the desk. It's all there. The Imperial War Museum will love the ration book. It has doodles in the margins. Arthur always did doodle when he was hungry, Claire chuckled. She set the tea down. She looked at Amelia. You have worked hard, Claire said. You have kept your word. I had to, Amelia said. I wanted to. How are you feeling? Claire asked. Lighter, Amelia admitted. My bank account is empty. I'm working double shifts at the cafe starting Monday. But lighter. And the other thing? Claire asked delicately. The urge. Amelia paused. It's there. Sometimes. When I'm stressed. But then. She shifted in her chair. The physical memory of the punishment had faded to a ghost, but the emotional memory was vivid. Then I remember, Amelia said. I remember that I don't want to be the person who sells her family. I want to be the person who saves it. Claire walked over. She placed a hand on Amelia's shoulder. You are, Claire said. You are saving it right now. Claire looked at the screen, at the digital archive of their lives. You know, Claire mused. Arthur made mistakes. He broke rules. He kept secrets. But he always came home. That was his redemption. He came home. Amelia looked up at her mother. "I'm home, Mom," she whispered. "I know," Claire said, squeezing her shoulder. "Welcome back." Outside, the clouds broke. A single shaft of pale London sunlight pierced the gloom, striking the window of the Georgian terrace. Inside, the fire crackled, the tea steamed, and the silence was no longer heavy. It was the comfortable, enduring silence of a history that had been tested, broken, and beautifully repaired.